Coach, what happened in the second half against Kentucky?
We collapsed. I think we made some, again, we continued to make mistakes, and I think that's a little bit disappointing. I think the most disappointing thing for me is it seems, it was one goal, and then within the span of, 7 to 11 minutes, it was 3, 4 other goals, and that's disappointing. I think we made some bad mistakes in the first half. The first goal was a bad mistake from our goalkeeper. I thought we played decent in the first half. We limited them to stuff. They didn't have that many chances. We dealt with a lot of things well. And then we go in at half-time, 1 down, and second half we come out and we just kind of lay an egg, which is really, really disappointing.
You have almost a week off until St. Louis, so what do you guys want to work on in practice now?
Defending. We're going to look at maybe changing formations and doing some other stuff, because I think now people have really figured us out and figured us where our weaknesses are, so we now need to stay ahead of the game a little bit. And I think we're going to go back to what we've done and taking pride in defending, taking pride in keeping people off the board and things like that. So it's going to be a tough week, a tough couple of days for sure, and before we start looking into St. Louis.
What does your non-conference record say about you at this point?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I kind of, obviously last night coming home and this morning and just, been in deep thought about a lot of stuff. I think the only thing you can say is our 3 losses are to SEC schools, but I don't think I'm happy about the manner of the losses. It's not like it was, apart from maybe the Alabama game, the Vandy and the UK ones weren't, it wasn't 1-0, 2-1, 2-0. It was, in the end it kind of flattered our opponents and it was blowouts because we were making bad mistakes.
As far as injuries are concerned, what are you looking at right now this far into the season?
I think we're just starting to get everybody back. Obviously Taylor Richardson re-injured herself and she was struggling. I put her on a little bit, I think when it was like 2-0 maybe last night. They scored again, so at that point I pulled her off. There's no point in, we need to get her back and get her healthy. I think.
What's her injury?
She's got a thigh strain.
Okay.
And she hasn't managed it well. She had a thigh strain, was fine, then was doing too much stuff on it and re-hurt it, and it's even worse than what it was first time. So now it's a little bit set back. But she's had maybe 8-9 days now of not really doing too much, so hopefully it's starting to get better. I'd hope by St. Louis that she'll be pretty much good to go. I think one really, really, really important thing from last night was obviously the result was horrible, but Lissy's probably going to be done for the season. She might have done a knee, so I think she's waiting to get into the doctors and see what's going on.
Can you tell me a little bit about just where you would go defensively if Lissy's out for the year?
We have other people that can step in. Corey Kane can do that job, and also Aaron and Maddie Gurman. So we have other people that can fill that. But not to talk too much about what we're going to start doing. I'm going to put 2 people in there, that hole, instead of just Lissy. And even if Lissy was healthy, then I think we'd, that was one of the changes that we needed to do to protect ourselves a little bit. But hopefully Lissy's just a strain. It doesn't look like that, but she'll be a huge loss for us.
As far as that's concerned, do you feel like, when did she get injured in the game?
First half, I think it was right before maybe 30-25 minutes in. So she got injured pretty early.
Not to look for an excuse, but do you feel like the team maybe came out in the second half frustrated they didn't have her in the center?
I don't think so. I think we played it, and not to, put everything on. Played a couple of freshmen, and one of the freshmen in the second half just kind of lost her head totally, and a bunch of goals came from there. And then also our goalkeeper has been making really bad mistakes. She hasn't really bailed us out of anything, helped us out. So, we've got to see what we're going to do in that position as well.
What's been the toughest thing during the skid, and what do you, besides defense, how have teams figured out you guys offensively?
I think everybody's kind of offensively or defensively.
How have they been able to figure you guys out?
I think everybody's kind of known our weaknesses all along. I think once you play in maybe not SEC schools, you can kind of get away with it a little bit. But obviously, I think we did it a half against Alabama. we know we're up 2-0, and then they kind of figured us out second half. Vandy, they figured us out, or we didn't kind of show up in the first half, and then we corrected things in the second half, which was better. UK first half we did well, second half we didn't. So maybe, you know, and I'm always one of those people to look at myself first. It's, you know, instead of second guessing myself, I need to be a little bit more proactive and make sure that I can put our kids in better positions to see the game out and make it better.
This adversity, you said at the beginning of the season you'd like to see a better non-conference
Sure.
slate, just a better turnout.
Yeah.
Is it still, I mean, are these still the same type of rigors that you're going to need to face the Moorheads and the SEMOs? Here in a couple weeks?
I don't know. Obviously, we're not, you know, Moorhead and SEMO. SEMO is going to be decent this year. I think their results are okay. You know, they're undefeated so far. They played a couple of good teams. They played some D2 schools. So I guess the real test for them, they go play UK on Wednesday. So we'll kind of see where they're at. You know, they're not the same as SEC schools. But that being said, you know, we can't come out with the same mentality. We need to make sure that we're on top of our game. And like I told the girls last night, we're no surprise for anybody anymore. We kind of talked about this early on in the season. You know, even SEC schools, they don't want to be upset by us because they know what we did last year. We played UK in the spring before and beat them. We played Vandy before, and so they know and they were up for the game. And we're going to get everybody's best shot, so that's why we've got to make sure that we give a good shot back. You know, in terms of adversity and stuff like that, it's no, you know, this group's been in a similar position before. I think my first year, I had most of these players, obviously not the freshmen. We're only playing 3 sophomores, so they don't really understand that. But the majority of the group, we were 1-5 in my first year, so they understand, and they texted me this morning, and the captains, the 6 of them, 6 senior leaders, they wanted to meet in my office, so we just met now for like an hour and a half, and which I think is good that they're being proactive and they really want to take, you know, onus of themselves.
This may seem like a silly question, but I mean, could this become a season where everybody kind of unites around the injuries, you know, behind Taylor, behind Lissy, behind even some of the others?
I think so. I'd hope so. I think, you know, I think our leadership group at first was maybe a little bit all on different pages and kind of all over the place. And I think over the past 3 weeks, I think those girls have really started to come together. You know, and you know, we talk about different things. And last week, you know, they were out at practice an hour early before we even started practice. You know, before they wouldn't go out there until we stepped on the field. Last year, it was a group that was always out there before we were out there. So I think they're trying to slowly figure things out, and I think once that group gets a little bit better, then you know, that you'll see big improvements from us.
You said the players asked for a meeting.
Yeah.
What did they want to talk about?
They just wanted to talk about what's going on and things that they were observing in games, and, you know, stuff that they want to see change in training and things like that.
Okay.
You know, I think that's good, and I always encourage that you know, the group last year, they would do that. We'd have weekly meetings, and they'd come in and they'd tell us thoughts about what they thought about the game, and, you know, things that they thought that they needed to work on in training. And I think it helps. You know, it's got to be them, it's got to be their team. It's not about me, and it's not about my coaches. It's, you know, it's about them as a group. If they buy in and do what we want to do, the results will be better because they've got more ownership on the group.
What has it been about the goalkeeping, and how can it get better?
You know, I think by Alex's standards, it's been very poor. You know, not to bash it too much. You know, the Chattanooga game, I think, was the best game all year. Other than that, I haven't seen him make any real good saves. Alabama, she conceded a couple, that was her fault. Vandy, a couple of, you know, 3 or 4 of those goals were her fault. Last night, she could have helped us out a lot more. And Arkansas State, you know, the girl scored from almost an impossible angle and cost us a point, you know, 2 points in that game. So, you know, for her, I've tried to talk to her in different ways. I've tried to encourage her. I've tried to get after her a little bit. And right now, she's just not responding. So that might be somewhere where we might be looking at changing, giving somebody else an opportunity.
Do you think maybe she's kind of feeling, I don't know, kind of, even though she is experienced,
Yeah.
being still young, being a sophomore, You think that could have part
I don't
to do with
know. I really don't know. And we've talked about a lot of stuff. You know, we talked about the expectations. We've talked about what happened last year, and you know, the kids. They say that hasn't affected them and things like that, and I kind of believe them. You know, I hate this, but it's always been we've been a little bit of a slow starting team. You know, up and down, and I think this year obviously we scheduled 3 SEC schools, and I think, you know, like I said before, I think the manner in which we've lost the games is very disappointing. We do it in spells. We just need to make sure that we do it for 90 minutes, which has been our problem so far in the 5 or 6 games that we played. You know, we'll do it for a half or we'll do it for 30 minutes, and then we won't do it again for, you know, we'll miss it out for 30, 40 minutes, and then we'll do it again for like the last 10 minutes. We need that consistency.
Yeah, just inconsistent play.
Yeah, which is disappointing because we have an experienced group who's been there, done that.
Mathematically, did you guys have the toughest non-conference schedule in history, or can't figure out?
I don't know. I
haven't been
think
able to check
it's
that.
been pretty tough. St. Louis is actually 6-1, probably one of their best starts ever in their
Oh, wow.
history. They've been beating some pretty good schools, so I think they beat Illinois last week. So it's not going to be an easy game going there. But again, you know, we can compete with those people, and that's what I wanted. You know, maybe I was a little bit too boneheaded and maybe should have mixed some stuff up. I think losing the game against Louisiana Tech kind of hurt us, and would love to get another game under our belt. But you know, I think it'll prepare us. I think these kids understand that this isn't the be-all and end-all, and that, you know, we can turn it on for conference.
Would you consider the non-conference schedule almost like a boot camp, the breakdown before the build-up?
A little bit. I think, you know, I think the way it's gone, maybe a beat down boot camp a little bit. But you know, I think, you know, talking to them, they understand, especially my older players, there's 6 of them. They understand what's going on, and I think in the end, and after talking to them today, it makes them a little bit more hungry and, you know, angry to fix some things. I think one of the comments from the girls was, "I'm sick of conceding goals and I'm sick of losing," you know, and I think that's a good response.
Competitive fire.
Yeah, and that's what they are, you know. That's what I think they bleed off of us and listen to us, and which is good. Now we actually got to go do it instead of talking about it.
I would assume that the freshmen will have a lot more time now with just
Yeah.
some of these injuries.
Yeah, we got to play a bunch last night, obviously in a pretty big game. I think the freshmen have been coming on pretty well. I think against Arkansas State, they actually played very well, the majority of them. So, you know, for them, again, it's inconsistency. It's, you know, some games, I think, you know, Arkansas State, like I said, they played great, and last night maybe 2 or 3 didn't do much. But then again, it's, you know, a bit of better opponent. Again, for them, it's just consistency. They just need to make sure they understand that every time we train, every time we play, they got to come out and play and do stuff, and not, you know, not hide, not show up.
Okay. Thank you
Thanks.
for your time.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You guys